right. Bethany, introduce the show, will you please?
Well, good evening, everyone. You have tuned into Wagon Wednesday with Tara Bassett.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
And
You're doing great.
And we are here at My Dog Eats First, which is a grassroots nonprofit that was founded by yours truly, that helps to feed the pets of the homeless and the underserved right here in our city.
I love it. That was excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is Betheny Buster, by the way, for any of you people who've been living in a cave who don't know about My Dog Eats First, which is hard to believe. And I'm so excited about the fact that she allowed us to come down here today and do this broadcast, because I've been wanting for a long time to actually go live on location, and now I can, and I'm so excited about it. And I also have some other guests with me, and a couple more who are going to be coming in and kind of folding into the interview as they arrive. Glenda, would you like to introduce yourself and your lovely guest, Maurice?
I'm Glenda Atkins. I'm with the Forgotten Louisville, and this is my dear friend, Maurice Lemons.
Do you like to say Morris or Maurice?
Maurice.
Okay, I'm just checking, because I always like to call people by the name that they prefer. And I hate being called Tara.
Somebody said that to me today, and I was like, don't call her Tara.
Because you know what'll happen. Bad things happen when people call me Tara. So what I'm mostly concerned about at this very moment is making sure that people understand what the purpose is for us being here. And we are here because of the fact that we have an extraordinary problem. It's really epidemic proportions of homelessness in Louisville, and the animals are also suffering. It's folks who live on the street, who have pets, cats and dogs particularly, who need assistance because, as we all know, it's horribly expensive to vet an animal, to feed an animal, and to care for an animal. So that's why we came down here today, and Bethany was just gracious enough to allow us to come out. And we actually came out to the parking lot because all of us were like, it is so beautiful out there. We just have to be outside. So we wanted to share this moment with you and to let you know that there are 4 organizations being represented here today. My Forgotten Louisville friends right here, Glenda and Maurice. I also have somebody from Exit Zero coming over. We have Keep Louisville Warm, and then hopefully Jeff's going to be here from Hip Hop Cares.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great opportunity to pull together the factions that work so beautifully and cooperatively together, and make it possible for you to figure out what you can do to assist. And so, Bethany, just as a kind of a little background, I'd like to know about My Dog Eats First. What exactly inspired you? Go ahead and tell the story of what inspired you to begin this nonprofit.
So I have an older son who is now a officer in the Navy.
Wow.
He's stationed in Japan. And before he left for college, he was 17, getting ready to turn 18 years old. I took him out for lunch, and we had an encounter with a homeless individual with a companion animal. And until that day, I really didn't even know that we had a homeless issue here in Louisville. Like, I've always lived in my little suburban bubble,
Yes.
and so I just didn't really realize, honestly, that we even had, I'm embarrassed to say, homeless individuals here.
I'm going to move this to this other side because you're kind of looking at me. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
homeless individuals here in the city. So, but he had his companion animal with him, and to make a very long story shorter.
We've got an hour.
Oh, okay, cool.
Make it long. Do what you need
So
to do.
I got us food, and we sat down, and this homeless gentleman was kind of wandering around looking for cigarette butts actually to smoke, and he sat down, and he looked hungry, and he looked tired, and he was a little disheveled, and he had this little dog dragging along behind him, actually not on a leash or anything, just following him.
Aww.
Yeah, and happily. And he sat down on a bench kind of close to us, and I was sitting there thinking, oh man, what if he comes up to us, or what if he asks me for food? And I'm always embarrassed when I tell this part of the story, but it's true, and I think it's indicative of what a lot of people feel like when they encounter a homeless person, when they don't understand issues surrounding homelessness. But on the other hand, while I was sitting there kind of being judgmental and frightened or whatever, my 17-year-old got up and took his lunch over to him and sat down next to him.
Amazing.
And I always get a little teary.
Yeah, you can.
Introduced himself to him and spoke to him just like he would a friend, and which is what we should all do, I mean, he treated him like a human being. And he asked him if he was hungry, and he was like, yeah, man, I'm hungry. And, fist bumps ensued, and they sat and spoke to each other for a little bit, and Jake gave him his lunch, which the guy took very humbly. And before he ate a bite of that lunch, he made sure that most of it was fed to his dog.
Yeah.
So he made sure that his companion animal was fed and taken care of first. And so many things went through my mind in that moment, like, I was ashamed of myself. My son was so gracious and giving, and so there was a lot for me in that moment, and I knew that I needed to learn about homelessness here in our city and why it exists. And then there was the animal component, because I'm a huge animal person, as you know.
And have a pet walking business.
I have a pet sitting and dog walking business, so animals are my career and my life, and I grew up with them, and so I wanted to understand how that component worked, and why homeless folks had companion animals. If they couldn't even take care of themselves, why would they have a dog?
Exactly.
Well, it turns out that a lot of times a companion animal to a homeless person is the only thing that provides it with unconditional love.
Yes.
No judgment.
Yes.
It gives them purpose. It gives them something to care for that cares for them in return. And many, many times a homeless individual will come upon a companion animal because that companion animal is also homeless.
Yes.
So, these two souls come together and they take care of each other in many different ways. It gives me goosebumps.
Well, that's what I was saying when I was promoting this on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I said, wherever they are together, that's home.
Yes.
And I think that's so true in so many respects. And I'm thrilled to know that the people who are... don't play with the mic.
Sorry.
Somebody's like... Sharon Cecil says, and I'm going to interject here every once in a while, somebody's comment, because I think it's awesome. Sharon Cecil, who's a wonderful friend of mine, says there's so much we can learn from all of us sharing our stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you all for bringing awareness that is needed. So that's wonderful.
In all of my experience with My Dog Eats First since 2013, late 2013, I've not met one homeless individual that has a companion animal that animal aren't completely committed to it as much as they can be.
Yes.
To its care and to its well-being.
Yep.
And I always tell everyone when I talk to folks about this topic, everyone deserves someone to help them to look forward to tomorrow. And sometimes
that's a great saying. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Sometimes a dog, and we've seen it all. We've seen Glenda's shaking her head because she knows dogs, cats, bunnies. Sometimes they adopt a gaggle of ducks or whatever.
Exactly.
It's something for them to take care of, and it gives them purpose, and they get that feeling of love from this animal needing them as much as they need the animal. So, we're committed to helping people in those situations who are committed to the health and wellness of their companion animal, and that's what we've been doing.
Well, I love what this just is the symbolism of the guy sitting on the sidewalk feeding his dog first.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, at that point, did he say, My Dog Eats First, or is that something you came up with afterwards?
No, it just can't. Just because of the experience. And then later on, after I'd already named my organization, I found out there's actually been research done on this topic, and all of this information is on our website at mydogeatsfirst.org. My whole story and the research.
Yes.
Someone actually wrote a book called My Dog Always Eats First.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So, and she had done her thesis or something, I can't remember exactly what it was, on this topic, and so that was very interesting.
My Dog Always Eats First. Wow,
yes.
That's incredible. Want to welcome the folks who are watching. Julie Crutcher is online.
Hey, Julie.
We just saw each other on Sunday when I was down here. I was fortunate enough to be able to share some of the pet wellness clinic that was going on that Bethany and Pets for Life put together, and that is such an awesome thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, how many people actually know about it, but you should, because it's providing veterinary service in an underserved area of town. I mean, there's one vet in Portland, isn't that right?
Yes.
Crazy. And so I'm glad that Eric Cooper's watching. Sherry Wright is with us, Terry Chambers, Lisa Bellucci, and Tony Kessinger. So thanks to all of you. And I'll be calling out some of your names as we go through the hour, and thank you for tuning in to us. Glenda, I want to hear a little bit about the Forgotten Louisville, and I know that you guys have at times worked with My Dog Eats First to provide not only for the four-legged homeless people in the town, and I call them people because they are to me.
Absolutely.
My dogs are certainly people, but also to our two-legged homeless.
Yes, we have been on a campaign over the last 18 months, I would say, to try to get everyone off of the streets and into homes, to actually get them circulated back into the population instead of them being those people. We've done an exceptional job, I think, at getting folks into housing. About 2 years ago, February, we started underneath the Forgotten Louisville, we started the Forgotten Furniture, because we were getting folks into housing, but they didn't have any furniture to sit on or to sleep on.
And you don't even think about stuff like that.
No.
Oh, hey, we got a great apartment for you, but you're going to be sitting and sleeping and eating on the floor.
No spoon, no cup, no toilet paper.
Right.
So we started that because of different groups like My Dog Eats First, who help the companion animals. There was a huge missing piece into our component.
Yes.
So we have provided housing or furniture for people that are housed over the hundreds now.
That's
so we're
amazing.
Quite proud of that. As we sit today, we have other 21-day notices that are going out to, in fact, 3 camps that I serve on Wednesday night. And that's another huge problem because we don't have a area for that population to go to.
And talk a little bit more specifically about the 21-day notice, because this has been something that's been in the news for quite a while, and that is the city was going into homeless camps without any advance notice and pile driving them. I mean, literally forcing an evacuation. And when you have no home except a camp that you're in, all your stuff is there because you can't carry it with you everywhere you go.
Right.
So people were losing everything in one fell swoop. One bulldozer comes in and just completely blows everything away. So talk to us a little bit about the clearance. Do you need to get something to put over the top of this?
I think it's okay. It's
or you can just put it.
Right.
You can just
turn
put it on
it
your
over.
lap. Put it on your lap because it's black and it's going to pick up a lot of
I
that
think
heat.
Maurice can speak to that.
I'm going to ask Maurice to speak to that too, because you actually lived in one of the homeless camps, right?
Yes.
Would you talk to me a little bit about that experience, Maurice, and what it's like to not know when your home's going to be swept up and thrown away, literally?
Okay. The reality of once you choose to no longer be part of mainstream society in any way, whether it's 9 to 5 or living in a mission but outside, you fundamentally become a different kind of person, much more animalistic by virtue of the fact that this is your territory. And so it's not just a matter of all of your stuff is there, your identity as a person is tied to this land. And so that's why there's so many different problems when there's interactions with anyone. And so a lot of the times when the police come in, they're just doing their job because of the territorial dynamic of this is all you have, not just the stuff, but this piece of earth. In this place, I am safe. I may not be safe anywhere else, but I'm right here. And so when there's always the constant threat that you will lose the only place on earth that's your sanctuary, it causes people who are already in a bad, agitated state to be constantly antagonistic and problematic, because if you take this nothing that I have less than nothing. And so when you're always under the reality of you're not paying rent and therefore you got no say, it causes you to always have to think about the exodus. Because at some point, if I have to go, where am I going to go and spend the night the next night? And as more and more, because literally what preceded my getting housing was bulldozers and the police and all the things that came with that, and the notification that if I came back, I was going to go to jail because it's time to go.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you accept that as part of the reality, but clearly the fact that you're living like you're living doesn't mean you have a mansion somewhere in the back 40 to go to when they say leave. And so as they're squeezing more and more of the places you can hide and just be left alone to go through whatever you're going through, you're going to end up with more people in the fewer remaining spaces, creating higher population density, higher waste, higher trash, higher problems of concentrated misalignments. And so what happens when you see that there's a perpetual moving from camp to camp, space to space, which is why a lot of times you might see driving along, you might see somebody setting up tonight and think that's strange, and then you drive by the next day and they're gone because they're never safe.
I see.
And so when you never have any form of security, not even where you lay your head, it puts you in a place that makes it completely incompatible to get back into society, because your most basic need to feel safe is never a thing you can count on.
Not being met. Maurice, were you born and raised in Louisville?
No.
Did you come here as a grown-up or as a child?
Oh, as a grown-up.
Okay. So what was your background? Have you been living on the street for a long period of time in your life?
Definitely.
Okay.
Oh, most definitely.
How did you get there?
And the particulars of this thing, I went through.
You don't have to tell us anything you don't want to tell us.
Exactly.
Just in general.
That's I
Yeah.
got you. No, I went through a bad divorce and responded very badly, and got into a really bad mind state and didn't take care of my finances. And as I was slipping and sliding financially, then I got hurt, and then I couldn't work. And when you can't pay, you can't stay.
It's a vortex.
And so
cycle of hell.
And so once I didn't have a reason to be where I was at, which is Kansas, I just started drifting around the country, just breaking down and just wandering around without any purpose, because I just didn't have any purpose. And so I ended up here in July of 2014, on July 4th, in fact. And I've been here ever since. And I personally came when I looked, because I knew by that time from this, that, and the other, that the best place to be left alone, because that's all I wanted. All I wanted, which is what most people on the street want.
Yes.
They just want to be left alone. I don't have anything to offer you. You can't get anything from me. Leave me alone. And so I was camped out over off of the river near, I guess, Mercer, 12th Street, over in that area, because it's wooded. I could be surrounded by trees. As long as I'm out of the pathway of the people who are doing their thing, leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. And it was just a matter of intense isolation while I was processing whatever I was going to do with the rest of my life, until I finally figured out it's time to go.
God, it's amazing to hear the things that you're saying, because so many people just take it for granted that they're going to wake up in the morning under a roof, get out of their comfortable bed, go out and fix themselves breakfast, head off to work, go to the gym, do all these things that people don't think twice about doing. And you're talking about spending your life camping in the woods, trying to stay out of people's way because you don't want to interact with anyone. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of curious about the community living in homelessness. You were trying to stay off by yourself. Is there a point at which you thought it would be good to live with others? I mean, you're a pretty big guy. I don't know that anybody would want to, mess with you, but... Well,
it's like this. Tara?
Tara.
Okay.
Close enough
See,
for
all right.
government work.
Okay. All right.
Morris?
Tara. Not at all. Tara. Thank you, data.
Maurice,
Tara. Alrighty. But the thing about it is this. There's benefits and negatives, both sides, of being solo and in a group. Mm-hmm. The more people you add, the more problems you have.
Yeah, right.
That's everywhere in the world. And the more isolated you are, the more vulnerable you are, which is the same everywhere in the world. And so, because I know what I'm going to do in any sort of conflict, and I'd already learned that whatever other people were going through, getting enmeshed in it wasn't going to help me. I got my own problems. Yeah. My problems are so strong, they beat me down and got me curled up in a ball. Therefore, I don't see the point of joining other people's problems. And so the thing is, nonetheless, you're still social creatures. You still need to interact with people. You still need to be something other than an animal. And so the thing about camp life, depending on how your situation is, it's about space. It's just like here. Where there are people jammed up in tenement buildings, you're going to have more stress. When you got wide open, 5 acre here, 5 acre there, we can come and visit, we can say howdy, we can go back home. Well, the thing is, as everybody's going through their own personal kicks, and then you have to deal with the reality of being people at the bottom of the barrel, there's so much that's about justifying how you got here and why you stay here. Mm-hmm. And there's also at the same time trying to find little bits of hope to make it logical for you to start the process to get out of where you are. Because Rome wasn't built in a day, but once it fell forever.
Boy, if that's not the truth.
Yeah. Right.
If you lay down and you can't figure out how to get that thing back in you to make you strive, then that's how you get people who get stuck.
Yes.
And the more stuck you are, that's when you get bigger areas. Because when you're trying to get going, you got to get going for yourself.
Yes.
And if your other campmates don't want to come, well, they don't want to come. But if you start to get to that place where you all are giving up, then you might as well just sit there and rot.
Yeah.
And so for my sake, having tried it different ways, I realized that if I go down for good, I'll go down all by myself on my own terms. Because so much of the problem with that camp living is what they call residual paraphernalia. You can show up the first time at a camp and set up and not know that there's 6 or 7 syringes within 20 feet of where you set up because you showed up at night. And when the police show up and there's all these syringes, well, they're not yours.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there's all
Guilt
those
by
risks.
association.
Exactly.
Right.
And so there's all those risks that come with whatever you're doing. And as you do it longer and longer, you figure out, just like you do everywhere else, that there's better things for you to do whatever you're trying to do. And for sometimes, like in the winter most especially, the group thing is a thing to do. But at other times, because if you really are trying to focus on taking care of yourself, other people, whether it's down at the bottom or up at top, they'll bring you down because you're starting to break the orbit. And so there's a whole lot of self-analysis and motivational speaking you have to tell yourself to get back out of spiraling down. Because if you don't figure out how to motivate yourself back up, no matter how many options or opportunities come by, you just won't accept them.
All right, we're going to talk for just a minute. This is Maurice who is speaking to you, by the way. We want to thank Darlene Brumleve and Jamie Nicole. Truman Williamson is watching us, Marcia Buchanan, Julie Crutcher again. We talked about Tim Knoll, Jones Busby, Sharon Cecil, Roy Mullins, Alyssa Bierna. We appreciate all of you. Jackie Golby's watching.
Hey, Jackie.
That's a great name in the animal world. Susan Eileen Moore, Kathy Bishop Lynch, our friend Rita O'Hearn Smith from Kentucky and Lost and Found Pets Network. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity, if you want to get your sunglasses.
Oh,
because you must be dying. Oh, there you go. I'm watching in my rear view mirror here of my glasses. I'm thinking, Bethany's staring right into that sun. It doesn't bother me because I shot outdoors for so long with my shows, but it's very annoying, I think. Maurice, and I'm going to ask Bethany to just kind of chime in on this for just a minute. You deal with both individual folks who have a companion animal and are on the street, and you also deal with folks who are in the camps. And amazingly, with a lot of you guys who work with folks, you know their names, you know their dogs, you know where they hang, where they are, or where they're living, and you're able to identify, a lot of times with Rita O'Hearn Smith at Kentucky and Lost and Found Pets Network, you're able to identify a lost dog because you know exactly who owns the animal and where they are.
Yeah.
And that's truly amazing. So you're not just feeding these animals, and you're not just providing veterinary care that needs to be provided, but you're actually also kind of a tracking station.
Right. I want to go back a little bit and tell you that, first of all, we depend heavily on the Forgotten Louisville and the 4 or 5 other outreach, homeless outreach, nonprofits, grassroots, just like us. None of us get salaries. We're all donation funded, completely run by volunteer efforts. We depend heavily on them because their feet are on the street. That's what I always say. Their boots are on the ground. They're in the camps. They know, like you said, they know people by first name. They know people. They know people's dogs. They report back to me when they take food out for my dog eats first. They let me know who needs to be vetted, who's ready for spay and neuter, and so we could not work as seamlessly as we do without Glenda and the other folks that are going to be here. We all work together as a team.
Yes.
And I don't want to disparage anyone, but I feel like we accomplish more than most government agencies around town.
Absolutely.
Because we're always working together and doing so much. A couple of years into what we were doing in the parking, we started in parking lots.
Right, I remember.
We had a lot of other people coming to us from this area that were not homeless, but they were having to choose between keeping their companion animal and feeding themselves and keeping a roof over their head.
Right.
And so, as you know, we already deal with an overcrowded shelter issue.
Yes.
So that's when we kind of developed our second program, which is where we are today. We operate a pet food bank twice a month here in Portland.
And tonight is one of those nights.
Yes, the second and fourth Wednesday of every month we're here. We distribute free dog food, supplies,
cat food,
dog food, cat food, litter when we have it, leashes, collars, harnesses. We also have a small people food bank that we don't advertise a lot because the need is so great that we wouldn't be able to fill it. So the people that come in here for pet food, we also help them with non-perishable food items for people. We do see some homeless that come in. They walk. One of our folks, they're my friends. My friend walks 28 blocks twice a month to come and get pet food, get dog food for his dog.
Well, and let's talk about the way that that's disseminated too, because I would imagine that a lot of people would say, well, I can bring, a 30-pound bag of dog food and you can give it to somebody. Right. But the fact is there's a lot more involved in that. Yep. You can't just carry a 30-pound bag of dog food when you're not living in a specific place.
And we learned that very early in what we were doing. So what we do with all of our donations and all the food that we buy is that we rebag it into gallon-sized Ziploc bags because it's transportable. And now we have a lot of middle schools and high schools involved, and the fun thing is, and the great thing is out.
Yeah.
And also St. Margaret Mary. So, but that's, we operate here in Portland, and then the homeless component is that we supply all of the outreach folks that are going out to the camps with whatever they need. And of course, we arrange vet care for our folks that have companion animals. And things of that nature as they need it.
Keep talking, because the reason that I am moving this is because the wind is going to blow the camera over, and you're going to lose your table.
Oh,
here. So,
here.
There we go. All right, we're good now.
So you mentioned earlier seeing Julie at our veterinary clinic, and that's another thing that we implemented 2 years ago. We now do monthly low-cost wellness clinics here in Louisville. Here in Portland, we do them right here. So we're able to serve this group of people who can afford to give a little bit of money for the health and wellness of their pets, and they want to.
Right.
And then as we need to, for our homeless that don't have the money to give, we of course arrange for all of that to be taken care of for free for them through our nonprofit sisters and brothers.
I know for us, because it is done consecutively every month, the same date, same time, it makes it much easier for us on the street to say, John, you can take Bob down to Portland, and My Dog Eats First will have this going. And it makes a lot of happy people, who are, and we find in this area also, we have a camp that we feed, that there are a lot of homeless, but there's also a lot of underserved.
Yeah.
This is just a really underserved area.
Yeah.
Well, and I noticed too that as we're talking, the first and most, I would guess the word would be notable, homeless camp in this city was Campbell Camp. The reason being, it was the one of the first to be raised. I mean, literally, and I mean RAZED, not RAISED. By the city. And so in previous times, not too many knew where homeless encampments were, and I kind of describe it as being hidden in plain sight.
We have calls coming in.
We've got wonderful
Exit Zero.
Exit Zero is here. That's awesome. Look at them pulling right up there in their big truck. So not many people were aware of the fact that camps even existed, as you suggested. Not many people are aware of the fact that the camps are located hidden in plain sight, and they're in places that you would never expect them to be. And so when one was raised, just totally wiped out, and the guy, I can't remember his name, the guy who had the amputated leg, who was in the wheelchair.
Oh, Byron?
Yes, Byron, who was not able to really go anyplace else. And they were like, well, just go to a shelter. This is the answer to everything, is just go to a shelter. But in fact, and you can address this if you'd like to, Maurice, I don't know if you've spent any time in shelters, but from what I've heard, they're not the safest place in the world, and a lot of people want to believe that it's much better than being on the street. I've understood from several people who I've spoken to in my experience with Fed with Faith, going out and serving a number of different people. It's really not a safe environment to be in. A lot of them would rather take their chances out on the street.
Well, it's not just a matter of safety, it's a matter of the totality. We were out doing outreach one Wednesday, and we met a man who had just become homeless, and in case he's out there, he's got, I don't know his name, and he'd had one taste for the first night at a shelter, and he was more than ecstatic to get a sleeping bag and a tent and sleep outside.
Wow, isn't that interesting?
Because the realities of his situation was he had a job, but whatever the case was, he didn't have enough money to pay his rent. And so he needed to keep his job, but the realities of the structure of the shelter when you have to show up, he was going to have to go through a bunch of hoops to keep his job and keep a bed, and he wasn't going to do anything to jeopardize his job for the sake of getting a bed at the shelter. Because if he's got to go to work and the paperwork has been approved for him to come in after hours, then he's going to be outside anyway. And so it's the matter of the shelter system is designed for people who are going to be there all the time, who are going to wake up there, eat breakfast there, eat lunch there, eat dinner there. And if you're trying to do something other than work on their schedule because your schedule requires you to go to the South Side for a job interview when they can see you, then you have to choose. It's a matter of, it's not necessarily knocking the shelter system by no means, but it's a matter of they exist to serve certain functions. And if what you need or where you're at doesn't fit that, like if you have a dog, you can't bring your dog into the shelter.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how much.
That's a big problem for people
and it
who are
doesn't
dog
matter
owners.
how much you want to get clean that night or whatever. If this dog is the most important being in the world
That's
to
right.
you, you're not going to take the chance that somebody else is going to watch it. And so it's all those different things that are part of what you do every day to make life bearable and make sense to you, that whenever you interact with the system in any way, you have to adjust. And sometimes you can do that and sometimes you can't. But when it comes to the reality of safety, there's lots and lots of people that you're going to find who show up at shelters who are of a predatory nature, that they're in a rehab and they're trying to sell drugs, that they've got whatever else going on and they need to steal whatever you have. And so having had my bag stolen with my birth certificate and other things, I very quickly realized,
which is just critical.
Well, and it's only a matter of, and it's the hilarity of, if I had $1 million in the bag, would I have left it here at the shelter? You know, but it's the reality of, once you get enough bad experiences in shelters anywhere, you then start to realize that you have to be aware that this is the price. And so sometimes it's a matter of time and place. Sometimes it's a matter of a companion animal. Sometimes it's a matter of safety or security. But whatever it is, when you get to the point of realizing that you genuinely feel less secure and less productive by going into the mission system, you'd rather just get a tent and an alarm clock and sleep outside.
And to that point, one of the number one cause of homelessness, not just here but in America, is lack of affordable housing. Not drug addiction, not mental illness, not, it's the lack of affordable housing.
Well, and we, first of all, let me just introduce our friend from Exit Zero. And I'm assuming that you are Paul Stensrud.
Yes, I sure am.
It's a pleasure
last time
to
I've checked.
It's nice to meet you, Paul, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for responding so quickly, because actually I found out about you last night, and it was posted, a couple of different places on my page that I should invite you to come with us, and I thought this is an awesome idea. So if you are not hearing everything, for some reason we're having a little bit of Wi-Fi issues, so I want to just call that to your attention. Throw me a little quick text on here and let me know, and we'll try to make an adjustment to that. But we're working on Bethany's personal hotspot in a very windy location. So
I have internet on the truck.
You have internet on the truck?
Yes, I do.
Are you kidding me?
No. That's how we do casework.
He's awesome. We're moving to the truck. No. Does the truck reach outside? Does the internet
Yes,
work
it does.
outside?
Mm-hmm. That's one reason we put it in there, is for casework. So that way, there's a lot of agencies out here that talk a lot of talk, so don't talk about it, be about it. We're able to basically set up tables like we are here today, provide internet for those caseworkers, because once again, their mentality is get that individual into the shelter system. The problem is the shelter system kicks them out in the morning. Now you can't locate them. So basically, if we can set up a one-stop shop, kind of like what Beth does here, by inviting other agencies in to help them with getting their IDs, birth certificates, but of course you need internet. So we're able to do that just right from the truck.
There goes the table topper again, but I think we're okay. I just got a note that said sounds and looks good, so that takes a lot of the pressure off. So really quick, let me mention a couple of other folks here. Carol Kramer, Bunny Zeller of the Animal Care Society, our friend Courtney Gray. Sharon Cecil wants to remind us today is National Pet Day, which is very important to all of us. And Johanna Perry is watching, who has little Toby in my neighborhood, Lisa Pantoja. And Alyssa just asked this question. She says, maybe this is off topic, but I'm really curious. One of the things she learned when living in Chicago is that the average age of homelessness is less than 12 years of age there. Does anyone there know what the average age of homelessness is in Louisville? You want to take a shot at that,
really hard,
Glenda?
From 17 to 24-year-olds.
Now we're talking. There's a couple of different ways I believe that they classify homelessness. I mean, because there are kids that go to school every day that, you know, whatever, that are technically homeless because they live with their families in shelters, or they are. I think they classify foster children as homeless. So the last statistic that I saw in Kentucky for children was in Louisville there are over 6,000 homeless children in Louisville, Kentucky.
And is that below the age of 12 or just children
they
under
classify
17?
children
Under 17.
Yeah. So
is that about your experience as well, Paul?
Yeah, and basically with that as well is the point in time count. You know, when they get those counts, it's not always accurate.
Right.
So, but yes, it's we've seen a lot more younger generation. We do see them out here about age of 18 as well, because they're coming out of the foster system.
Yes.
To where basically there's all new paperwork, but if mom and dad ain't getting that check no more, guess what? That person's cut off of services. Now they're outdoors, no medication, kind of get lost, hooked into addiction. It's a vicious cycle that needs to be broken.
Glenda, I'm going to pop back with you just a second. When you tell me how the Forgotten Louisville interacts with the folks in our town who are homeless and who need your assistance. What is the service you actually provide?
We do feeding every Wednesday night. We feed at 7 o'clock. Sounds so impersonal to call it feeding. But we also have other people.
Well,
in the
you know, they said Jesus said, "Feed the homeless."
Well,
so
that's true.
feed
That
the hungry and clothe the naked and shelter the homeless.
But we have different groups that do our feeds. Tonight, Fusion 502 will be providing the meal. It'll be
wonderful.
Pasta night. Everyone loves that. We also have different people that come from the community that bring like clothing and shoes and cans of soup and whatever the needs they have or whatever extra they have. So once we break away from the lot, we have 4 different areas we go. My particular route is I find people behind buildings and in the parking garages and places that most people don't go to look. I do have the skate park and Slugger Field that are out in the open, who now have been given their 21-day notice, who will have to be moved as well. I do have Mercer Camp, and take that all the way down to Portland. Now they have no camping signs in front of them, which is not a 21-day grace period. It's no camping. Yeah. So we have those people. Hopefully most of those will be in housing soon.
How are you getting them into housing is what I think a lot of people would like to know. Because you don't just say, hey, you know, there's an apartment complex that's got some spaces. Yeah, it's $700 a month.
Yeah, for those that have jobs, it's a little easier. Oftentimes we have a group of different landlords that are interested in helping the homeless population and or the underserved if they have employment. We also have the Coalition for the Homeless, the Common Assessment Team.
Right.
We have backing from Natalie, and then also the Common Assessment Team comes out to our lot and also comes out in the field with me. I also bring people to them. So it's kind of like if I have a dog, I call Beth. You know, we just know our point people on who to call. You know, if I have somebody in Indiana, I mean, I send them Paul's way because our efforts can definitely
overlap very easily.
Yeah. And can also be taken away very easily as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but we have really found that when we started the Forgotten Furniture 2 years ago, February, what I found was a large percent of the people we were putting into housing, if you did not do a constant welfare check to make sure that they were there, they needed clothing, they needed toilet paper, whatever their needs were, they needed to go to a doctor. Where do they start? Do they have Medicaid? You had to do more of a case management position. But what I found from doing that, although it is at times tireless, or very tiring on the other hand, I found that those people are staying in housing much longer than what we were having before. Because it was not uncommon when they went into housing, if they didn't have furniture, they would be back out on the street right away and into the same stuff they had been in.
And, you know, the Forgotten Louisville is in Louisville, obviously,
right.
and Exit Zero is obviously in southern Indiana. But do you guys have brick and mortar places, or are you operating kind of like a lot of dog rescues do, which is out of a foster-based system? Are you operating going to the parking lots on a Wednesday night, or how does that work?
Well, basically,
you've got a big truck, which is really helpful.
Right, that's basically our warehouse, more
yeah.
or less. It's on wheels, but also we can do casework out of it. But it's collaboration and communication amongst each group. You know, knowing what each group is doing out here for our community is very important. Making sure there's no overlapment, because we want to make sure they get the proper services. And once again, it's kind of, where do you live? What part are you in? Kentucky? You in Indiana? Knowing to start at St. John's for the men. So it's knowing your resources, what a lot of it is.
Yes.
But then also emergency situations. I mean, we've been around just as long as the Forgotten. I think me and Tiny kind of started around the same time. You know, we look back at 10 years ago, there was only, I think, 4 or 5 outreach groups that were doing this, and it's a true blessing to be able to see multiple agencies now, and Facebook, social media has been a blessing if it's used the right way.
That's
and,
correct.
you know, it is used the right way. There's a lot of great communication, and here in Louisville, there's a team out every night, you know, checking on these guys,
Somewhere.
which is fabulous. Yep. The casework, we've got a lot more communication with local government now, which is key, because you know, these 21 sweeps still kill me, you know, because where are they supposed to go after you tell them to move on?
Basically, it's just creating a big circle of, I mean, they're just moving from place to place.
Right.
So, I mean,
yeah.
And, you know, doing this for 10 years, it's, you know, they're just going to vacate that area for about a month or two and then go right back to it. We need a solution to, or even a little bit of guidance of what can we do.
Well, and the new facilities that are being built, I know that one of them is for, you know, for soccer, and the other one is the hotel that's just been built, and a lot of other plans that the city has, which, you know, obviously the city's going to continue to grow. I know a lot of those areas are also kind of edging out the places that a lot of homeless camp, and so that's why we come back to the same question. And Maurice, if you could just kind of tell me what it's been like for you. You're not living on the street anymore.
No.
So tell me about that tell me about that transition, and what it is like for you now, and just give me a kind of a glimpse into your life, if you would. And then I'm coming back to ask you more questions.
Sure.
I moved into my apartment on November 1st, so I've been in for about 5.5 months.
It's fantastic.
The first big difference was getting used to the fact that I didn't have to be worried about strangers taking my stuff.
Yes.
The sense of security that I could lock a door, it was amazing how it took about 2 weeks, and then one day suddenly out of nowhere, I felt just my entire body relax.
Wow.
Because I'd gotten so used to waking up in a real bed every day and knowing that if I didn't want anybody over, I didn't have anybody over. And it took long enough for me to feel secure to realize that the thing about the law of the jungle mentality you have to have if you live outside. Because having been jumped at 2 in the morning, trust me, you better be ready at any time.
Fight or flight is the major thing.
And at 2 in the morning, you got no choice but fight. So the thing is that once I felt secure in being safe physically, territorially speaking,
yes,
then it was a matter of starting the process of coming back to interacting with people in a mainstream context, which I most definitely am not back up to yet.
Well, and obviously you're getting there. Are you working?
No, I'm not working.
Okay. At this point in time, you have a home.
Yes.
And do you have a pet?
No.
Not one of those guys, huh?
No.
Come in here and get your gallon
Well,
bags.
I always tell people that if they come to me and they say, "Hey, Beth, I want a pet," I'm like, "Let's get you a plant first."
Yes.
And if it's alive in 6 months,
That's what they. That's
Then
what they say to
maybe
people
we'll-
coming out of alcohol
then
treatment.
maybe we'll work on something
Exactly.
like a fish.
Yep.
And kind of
See
graduate.
if you can keep it alive.
Because pets are a lot of work, and
And very expensive.
They're expensive, and you ask any homeless individual that has a pet. Actually, it kind of it's very ironic that some people tend to think that a homeless person having a pet is an abusive situation for a companion animal, because there are days when I'm away from my dogs, they're in their crates or whatever for 7 or 8 hours at a time. a pet of a homeless person is with them constantly.
Outdoors.
They have constant attention.
In their backpack.
Yep.
Yeah, in their backpacks or
in their pizza
boxes. In their right.
Yeah.
He's in Indianapolis now.
Inside joke. Tell us. Go ahead.
Well, there's a homeless person there was a homeless individual on in the Highlands that had a little Chihuahua that he would get Mark would get a pizza and the little Chihuahua would sit in the pizza box.
With Maurice, there was a couple times we'd come down late at night and he would have the pizza boxes, and you had the bag to slide the pizza in, and the mice were in there.
Actually, not mice. Actually, it was the mice. Eventually, they were second. No, it was the groundhogs.
The groundhogs.
They
there we go.
through because they have the teeth to tear through. It was a big Papa John. Hey, Papa John. It was a big, huge Papa John luggage bag. Like you put like 2 pizzas in each side. And I was using it for storage, and I thought I was so smart because I had storage. And one night I heard something, and I was like, well, whatever. And then the next morning, you know how you zip something up? That right where you zip it, that was where they must have sniffed.
Yep.
And from that place, they ate open, and then the groundhogs took the big stuff. And then the mice came through and cleaned up everything else. And so
Jeff from Hip Hop Cares is here.
Jeff from Hip Hop Cares is here. Well, hey, Jeff from Hip Hop Cares. Glad to have you. I'll tell you what is your son's name, Beth?
Dylan.
I'm going to yell at Dylan and ask him if he can throw another chair out here for us. And I'm going to let you talk about whatever you want to talk about for a minute while I do that.
Well, why don't we let Paul talk about what he does over in Indiana?
Well, I'd like to ask just a quick question because, I mean, it's been a while since I've been away from Maurice.
Hey, by the way, I knew this guy back when he was just Jeff, not Jeff of X Zero. He was just my homeboy. Not even Jeff. His name's Paul, but they messed me up. But
see,
Jeff,
we understood that.
Yeah, but
You know, I got a question I'd like to ask you, Maurice. Is how does a ministry, not just Exit Zero, but just a collaboration of folks that showed that love to you, being out there on the streets, how did that help you? You know, to where you are today, because, you know, I met you, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. You know what I'm saying? It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Whenever you lost your van when you were in Florida. I mean, it's crazy what you remember.
Yes,
you know?
yes, sir. Oh, yeah, there was a whole trip to get here, yeah.
But the thing is, from that point forward, the amount of groups that came down, visited, and just loved on you and guided you, how did that help you?
Okay, the reality for everybody in life is you have an identity. And whatever happens and you become homeless is your new identity. And that's not a fun jacket to wear. And so when folks like y'all come by and connect on some other level other than what's wrong with you. In your case, hey man, you like Game of Thrones? Here's the whole series. Here's the whole series. That the need to be something other than less than is something we all have. And with all the different people showing up, however or whatever they do, for at least that brief period of time, you don't feel like less than. And the more you put the sense of I'm not worthless into you, it bears fruit eventually. And so in my particular case, with you or with anybody, the more people show up and invest, if it's nothing more than just asking questions and just connecting, or if it's, hey, you know what, we've got Harry Potter. Here, read that if you haven't seen it. The sense of you matter to somebody for them to put the effort when you know they don't have to. Part of what was weird for me, and still is, about accepting help is I don't bring anything back. You know what I mean? Like you go out and get these brand new books, or they look brand new, they're new to me, wherever you got them, and then I feel so inadequate because I'm like, thanks, bro. But I'm like, these are $40 books, man.
Right.
But I'm saying is that that's a hard thing to deal with.
Yeah.
But when somebody does that, then I feel like I got to take care of those books. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the thing is, I cared more about those books, and I gave them back to y'all when I was done because I knew what I was going to do with them. I was going to use them to keep warm. I was going to set them on fire eventually. But because you trusted and invested in my well-being, I feel responsible to make sure I get that back to you, or at least I don't just thanks and never read them. Because when you give up on yourself, it's hard to re-believe in yourself if there's no external people who are encouraging you to remind yourself you're more than just your current situation.
I'm going to pop in here with an introduction, and well, you recognized him before I did. Why don't you introduce him, Bethany? This is Jeff.
And it's funny because I've never actually met him in person.
Me neither.
It's Jeff with Hip Hop Cares. He's another one of our community partners. We're all what we call community partners.
All community partners.
Yeah, we all just help each other out and support each other. And I'll let him go ahead and introduce himself and tell his story. I see you on Facebook all the time. I watch your videos and follow what you're doing.
Are you a hip hop artist?
Producer.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me how you went from hip hop to helping the homeless.
Well, it would all be a correlation with my life. I went through quite a bit coming up as a youngster and bumped my head quite a few times, made a lot of bad decisions, and was put in situations where I didn't know where I was going to lay my head at night. And anytime I ever asked for help, I got a cold shoulder, and people treated me like I was just a beggar when I really did need. And so when I was fortunate and blessed enough to be able, with the help of other people, family members, get back on my feet, I decided January 2016, I said, you know, I've made a lot of New Year's resolutions. I'm not going to make one this year. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dedicate one day out of the 7 days that we're blessed with to the community, however that is. And I sat on it for a while. And then one day I was going to work, and it was real cold because it was January, of course. And I saw a gentleman up underneath an overpass, no covers, no nothing. And it made me think about the stuff that I had at home, the extra stuff that's just sitting there. And it just sparked. I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I took all of the stuff that I had, my family members had, and I just started driving around the city. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Absolutely no idea. That's how it started.
Right.
And once I did get more involved, and I started actually dialoguing with people, eye contact, and just the basic things that represent respect. And I realized that the main thing that I noticed is people just need a little bit of hope. Yes. It's not about what we take out. That's survival. That's making sure that people get through the day. The main thing that's made me get through all of the times of I don't know if I want to continue to do it. I don't know how much I can continue to do this. I don't know if I should. I don't know if people are really supporting because in the beginning there wasn't much community support. And instead of letting it make me angry, I said, okay, well, I have to earn it. I can't be mad at people for not supporting something that they're not confident in that I've done. So I just applied myself, and once I made my way down to First and Broadway on Sundays, that was during the summertime, I met a lot of people that stayed in camps. Now, I had never been in a camp before. I had no idea. Like literally in every neighborhood, if there's a wooded area, there's people sleeping there at some point of the day. I had no idea.
That's the hidden in plain sight concept.
Yes.
Not in my backyard.
Yeah.
Yes. And folks that were coming down to Broadway, once it started getting cold, I started asking people, how can I come to you? And they let me know where they were at, which humbled me beyond belief, because I'm like, they're allowing me into their home.
It's a lot of trust.
Yes, it is. And so that opened up a whole new passion for me, and just a whole new experience that I never thought. Again, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I'm glad that I did, because once I did get into it, I realized that it doesn't take much. I've never been wealthy by any sense of the word. I'm a single parent. I live check to check, but that doesn't mean that I can't do everything I can and gain the support of others through work and dedication. So
for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm going to just go from my left all the way around to my right. We've got Jeff, who is with Hip Hop Cares. We have Maurice, who is helping the Forgotten Louisville. Glenda, who is also Forgotten Louisville. I'm Tara Bassett, Bethany, who is My Dog Eats First, and Paul from Exit Zero. We are talking about not only our four-legged companions who need food. My Dog Eats First does a great job of providing that, but also the assistance that's available in our city to the folks who are on two legs, who are not living in your standard and traditional home. And I'm just noticing I work in mental health, I work at Bridgehaven Mental Health Services, and there is language that is used that is, it's necessary to provide a sense of dignity to the folks that we're talking about right now, and you're using homeless individuals as opposed to homeless people, because it just has more of, I don't know, there's more of a negative connotation, I think, to saying a homeless person, or to saying the homeless as, kind of like a giant Borg of people who don't live in their homes. So homeless individuals, I don't know, I'm just picking up on that. So am I right or am I wrong?
I know that some of them out in the streets, instead of using the word homeless, they'll say, well, I'm just houseless. I'm house challenged, because not everybody wants to have that label as you're homeless.
Exactly.
No different than being in jail, being labeled as a murderer or a registered offender. You want, once again, it's dignity, And Jeff, keys in on a lot of it is when we're out here providing these services, it's about the respect and the dignity to the clients that we serve.
Right.
And it's the eye contact, it's building the relationship. And then for us, actually this weekend, we will actually be going to Georgia. And we had last week got bad news of an individual that was found under the bridge. And it was one of our guys. His dad is 65 years old, living in Georgia. So we'll talk about another area here of what happens after life and death out on the streets, And for us, what we do is our clients, when someone dies out here on the streets, you're cremated. We have a indigent burial here called Potter's Field, which I've done many burials there with Buddy Dumeyer, who was the coroner at the time. And Buddy still runs that particular program. But the thing is, with even my own brother, I couldn't accept a FedEx box saying, sign for your loved one. Because what happens is when you do die, they do find your loved one out of state. We need this amount of money to ship you. So what we do is we take the remains to the family. We spend that day with the family to provide that dignity. Because see, Dad's 65, hasn't seen his son in 20 years. What impact is that going to have when he receives his loved one, his son, that he hasn't seen in over 20 years? So it's just, once again, to show that dignity and that respect, and then just to love on him and his family just for a few hours before we disperse.
That's amazing. And Bethany is going to be kind enough to give us a little seat here for Chad. Hi, Chad. Welcome. We're glad to have you. Come on in. Squeeze in. We're just going to squeeze in a little bit tighter. Chad is from, is that mascara? Is that it's Bethany's City Lips lip gloss. I'm plumping lip gloss. Oh, you're plumping lip gloss, like you need to be plumped. I'm so glad that you're here, and let me just pop this on you for a second. Sure. And what we're ending up doing at this very moment is straining the mic supply. So what I'm going to do when Bethany comes back is I'm going to scoot you guys over and let her chime in there, and then I'm going to share my microphone with her. Okay, so we'll get, but don't scoot too far, because what I'm looking at is a pretty good range right now. Yeah, see, look how perfect is that? Nice. So I'm just going to let you scoot a little bit closer to Paul, if you don't mind, Chad, and we'll let Bethany scoot in here, and she and I can share this microphone. Continue with what you were saying, and then I'm going to introduce this guy. The whole concept of being buried in a potter's field is inconceivable to most people. It seems like something out of Dickensian London, and yet how many people are buried there?
There's many.
I bet there are. And where is this potter's field?
It's there's, I believe, more than one location. This one here that I'm referring is all the way out Can Run Road, out there by the electric company. Where all the coal's done, way out there. And the sad thing is, it's just not homeless. There's many that are going through the hospital that are John Does, that are unidentifiable, that just no family. So it's an amazing program that we do have here. And when we first connected with Buddy was during Jaime Valdez, when we lost him the first year of the ministry, and it was on Christmas Day. And we heard about this program. We brought a lot of the homeless, because once again, it's a community inside of a community. So not only do we return their loved one, but then we also hold a memorial service, because that's what we do.
And who maintains the Potter's Fields?
The Potter's Field, I believe it's done through the city, if I remember correctly. And like I said, it is online. There's a book about it here locally. Not trying to promote, but it's very interesting, the story of this. And it's a pine box, you know, it's just the basics. And, you know, it's heartbreaking when you have a backhoe with chains just bringing a body into the grave. If there's not volunteers available to be pallbearers. And a lot of times they go through the school system and they pull kids out of school in order to utilize them for that particular program. And it's
you know
pretty amazing.
How hard it is to get military honors for people whose families are, you know, living in their neighborhoods, and whose, you know, my mother was 97 years of age in October when she passed away, and she was a World War II veteran, and it took Heather French Henry to get us an honor guard. And, you know, that's a lot. So to have been burying veterans in a Potter's Field would just absolutely break my heart that they wouldn't have the same kind of military honors.
Many of the homeless that we've encountered, and actually we've got an anniversary coming up in May, Jesse, that used to live back on River Road, we're talking about 8-9 years ago. Jesse was buried there in Fort Knox, and that was a full honor. We also reach out to like the Patriot Guard, because there's different divisions, and these guys come in and they set up the flags, they give the proper burial and all. And once again, it's a collaboration of agencies just working together and knowing what your resources are in the local community.
Let's introduce you, sir. Chad, Keep Louisville Warm. Why don't you tell us what you do?
I'm Chad Kane. I work alongside all the other groups. We serve every Saturday. So we go out, we have a home cooked meal every Saturday. We go to numerous locations, the homeless camps, the library, etc. And we serve food, clothing, hygiene, anything we can get our hands on that'll help the next person.
Now, how did you get involved with this? Did you start Keep Louisville Warm?
I did.
Okay.
It was after quite a bit of time with Forgotten Louisville. I had worked with them for a long time. Took a break and worked in animal services, and after I was done with that, I wanted to do this full force.
Wonderful.
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
a tough job, and you know, we would be remiss in not mentioning Fed with Faith, which is one of the, I would guess, larger organizations in the city that serves the homeless, and they also work out. Wendy and Jean Manganaro work to serve camps and to go to individuals' spots where they're living, as opposed to serving in the shelter system, which all of you do. You're all working with those who are outdoors and living separately from the main groups, right?
Yeah, I work with a little bit of both. I see quite a few from the shelters that come down on Broadway on Sundays, which, interesting dynamic, because my rule down on First and Broadway is, if you need it, it's here for you. I don't separate where, if you live on the streets or not, but we do a camp outreach and overpass outreach as well, which is quite different. It's very different, but I don't know. Is it okay to touch on another topic?
You can talk about whatever you want. This is your hour.
Okay.
I'm serious. I'm bringing this in here, and we're going to don't anybody scoot away, because if you scoot away, you will definitely scoot out of the shot. So I'm just going to since Bethany is small, I'm going to just let her scoot in here next to me, and you and I are going to share a microphone. Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
something that I feel like is extremely conversation worthy.
Yes.
Is something that most people don't realize is when folks get off of the streets and they get housing, they go from an environment where they're surrounded by people and they're comfortable.
Yes.
And they're put into an environment where they feel alone.
Yeah.
And then the ones that suffer with mental issues really, really struggle. And a lot of folks end up back on the streets for those reasons. And a heartbreaking statistic for me personally is those that commit suicide. And while there are a lot of us, we deal with people that have made that transition, and we take their phone calls at all hours of the night. I'm sure we've all done that, which is okay, but I feel like the community needs to be more aware of that, and I feel like if there's some type of way that we can be more attentive to that topic,
yes.
and help people a little bit more, maybe a mentor program or something. I don't have the answer to that, or I would have already created it, but it's a very real thing, and it's heartbreaking.
Well, I mentioned this earlier. I work for Bridgehaven Mental Health Services, and we actually have a homeless grant through the city, mm-hmm. which enables us to intake individuals who are homeless and get them into mental health treatment, mm-hmm. which then helps to provide the services that will get them into a home, an apartment, get them the kind of food service that they need, and get them on insurance and get them licenses or birth certificates. Maurice was talking about the fact that he had his birth certificate stolen. Well, you can't do anything without proof of when you were born.
But also with that is mental health is something that is the hardest, but Joe, that we just recently lost as well, just last week, we got word. It's been a rough week for us. But with Joe, he wouldn't take medication. He refused all services.
Right.
So when it comes to the mental health homeless, as Jeff was saying, we need to hold that hand a little bit further to show additional love to get them where they need to get connected. But those 4 walls that Jeff is talking about, once again, I'm going back 10 years when we had Nick, old man Nick that was back in River Road. His brother found him, put him in a house, and those 4 walls basically killed him.
Yes.
We have our soldiers going overseas, fighting for our country. While they're trained a certain way, they're coming back different, and they can't focus with bills and the 4 walls and how to be social.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is where I praise Gene's organization, Fed with Faith, because they do that program that once you get off the streets, they are working with you a couple months afterwards too.
6 months.
So that sounds about right. And it's the love, and then that way that they're connecting to other services, because once again, we need to build the accountability and life skills, so we can't stay there forever, is what Maurice was talking about.
Yes.
We have to build the life skills so that way they can function, but it takes an army. It literally takes an army for one person, and the mentality of if every church just takes one person, it'll fail. It will fail because you need an army. You need more than one person.
I'm going to mention a couple of things here which are kind of important. First of all, Jeff, Maria says, I can't hear Jeff very well, and you're a soft-spoken guy, so just to speak a little bit louder for us. I want to mention Kelly Amy is watching, Ricky Wayne Burks, J.D. Wilson, Chris King, Maria Miles, of course, Sharon Lawrence Brown, thank you so much for being with us. Shelley Santry is with us, Dawn Marie O'Brien, Barbara Powers, and the woman who asked the question about the age of homelessness said this is a really important conversation. Her family will continue to volunteer for My Dog Eats First and Pets for Life, which is great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I know. Byron Hutchins and Bobby Thurman, Wes Goad, Janet David Hedrick, Andrea Bray, Brad Leedy, thanks for tuning in with us, Al Holbrook, James Green, Cecilia Covington, and Reggie Garcia. So we want to know what you think, and if you'd like to send us a message, you're welcome to do so, because I'm monitoring it here. It's a pretty good-sized panel, but everybody's behaving themselves almost as well as the district court or the family court judges I had on Monday. They behaved themselves very well, too. Bethany, let's come back to you and My Dog Eats First for just a minute. You really brought awareness, I think, at the very beginning to the fact that homeless individuals in our town have a whole lot of things that they're dealing with, including the care and feeding and veterinary treatment of their animals. But I think you actually drew a lot of attention to homelessness in general, because I think that before My Dog Eats First, no matter how long all of the rest of you guys have been working on it, the awareness was just not there. But you get into a multi-billion-dollar industry like pets, you bring that in, and of course this is National Pet Day, so of course we've, that just kind of proves my point. How long have you been going, Paul, in Exit Zero?
We've been going on about 10 years now. We started just like every outreach here out of the back of our vehicle.
Yep.
It's crazy. We were looking at pictures last night, and it was like, what in the world are we thinking? Because, 10 years ago, like what Jeff does under the bridge, you got hundreds of people coming through. But the mentality we have as a community is knowing that person coming for that meal, that's going to help with their water bill.
Right.
That meal covers them for that weekend for a meal, but also prevents them from spending money they don't have, so that way they don't become homeless.
Chad, when did you start Keep Louisville Warm?
About 2 years ago.
Okay.
But
So
like
you're a
I said,
newcomer to this arena.
Well, I had worked with Tiny and Forgotten
Sure.
Louisville for off and on for several years, but
Yeah, and how long has Forgotten Louisville been around, Glenda?
10 years.
Amazing.
Probably.
over 10.
Y'all, you two are probably the oldest of, because I actually started volunteering with the Forgotten Louisville, and after I had my encounter that touched me, I did some research on who was doing what and found the Forgotten Louisville and Paul, and so they were my mentors for the last 5 years, I guess now. So
I guess the question is, had you all ever thought about feeding animals?
We do.
Yes.
We
gonna
carry
say,
dog
yeah.
food, cat food on the truck.
So you're
and-
doing a lot of the same thing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was curious, as before My Dog Eats First, if it were something that was, usual to bring food to the humans and bring food to the animals as well.
I think once My Dog Eats First came on board, it made not having that component in our everyday
Yes.
much easier.
Yeah.
And she's much more an expert. Beth knows everything or everyone who needs to know about this. And that is an area that I probably fail the weakest in. I just know how to get the animals and their owners to the right person.
There you
Right.
go.
So-
And Jeff, when when Hip Hop Cares goes out and does the work that you do, are you encountering the same kind of issue that we've been talking about, which is people who do not want to come inside because they have their dog, people who don't want to go to a shelter, people who don't want to accept assistance without the animal there, and what are you doing to help them?
Oh, absolutely. We definitely run across that. Yes, I'm sorry, I'll speak
That's
up.
okay. I know you're soft-spoken. It's okay.
Absolutely, from every end of the spectrum, not just the camps, but overpasses as well, which was somewhat surprising to me. But yeah, there's pets everywhere, and it's one of those situations where I didn't really think about it, but once you notice it, it's like, okay, well,
Yep.
can't let the dog go hungry.
Right.
And as you stated, to My Dog Eats First, Bethany's credit, I mean, huge help. There's been many of times where she said, come by and get as much dog food as you need. I mean, that's extremely helpful for us as far as like being able to offer things, because a lot of us will more than likely see a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
Now we all have where we go, like in our different areas outside of the typical areas, but we all kind of see the same people. So it's which is the importance of working together, because we can say, okay, we've already gave this camp dog food,
Right.
and it's very important to work together for a lot of different reasons.
What is the homeless count in Louisville at this very moment? Do we have a fairly decent number?
I have not seen the point in time count, which
haven't either.
doesn't surprise me.
I don't think it would be extremely hard to get an accurate.
Well, of course.
Right.
A
Yeah.
general
I mean,
estimate.
I would say
are
on
we
a- on
talking
a-
10,000 or 15,000 or 1,000?
I would
depends on what you want to include
Right.
as homeless, because when I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, for those who have been doing this much longer than me, but when they do that count that they do every year, they include people that have been homeless for a day up
Right.
to people that have been homeless for chronically for years.
Yes.
So that's a tough question to get an answer to with any real accuracy.
And it's HUD definition, and that's something within Exit Zero. We don't follow the HUD definition. We have so many families that are couch surfing. If you can't call that home yours, you're homeless.
Yeah.
Because if me and Jeff are living together and I just paid my rent on the 3rd, we get in disagreement, I'm not on the lease, guess what? Jeff's throwing me out on the 4th, and who's got my money? Jeff does. I'm on the street. There ain't nothing I can do about it. And that's a common scenario out here. So,
Chad, in the experience that you're having with working with Keep Louisville Warm, how many people are you serving on a regular basis? And do you have that one night a week that because I noticed that you said Wednesday, Bethany said Wednesday. Is that alternating weeks or the same week?
We're in two different locations. So
Okay.
this is our hub,
Right.
and we invite all of our community partners here to come and get what they need, and also we can set them up to be able to order through Walmart through our own account to have pet food delivered straight to you, so you can take out with them.
Wonderful.
So we have a couple that goes out on Wednesdays as well, but with the decimation of the area in which we were going to serve, which was Campbell Camp, we're trying to kind of reevaluate where we need to be next. So we're in a little bit of
a little flux too.
Holding pattern when it comes to us actually being out on the street.
So let's talk, Chad. You're very quiet. I want to get you to speak to us a little bit.
Respectful. So we set up kind of like Jeff. He does an overpass in a larger group of people. We serve near the library in a parking lot that I won't mention, but some days in warm weather we'll serve 100 people there. We usually cook for 150, so that's like our target number. But I go to the library, the homeless camps, several abandoned houses, and out in Fairdale, we've got people sleeping under a bridge.
The South End is in desperate need of services. I mean, that is truly an underserved area when it comes to homelessness and people just trying to get by.
And what we're talking about today on this issue, we call it, it's just unbelievable. The issue of homelessness in both humans and animals is at epidemic proportions, in my opinion. I was once told by someone who should know that there are literally hundreds of thousands of animals loose on the streets of Louisville who are not living in homes and who are unclaimed, basically. Yet there are a lot of animals that live with folks who do not want to live in a house. And I think you said houseless, which was an awesome way to describe it, because homeless doesn't necessarily have the same connotation. So I would encourage anyone who is interested in finding out more to check into some of these organizations, these nonprofit agencies surrounding me right now. And I'd love to be able to give you all so much more time, and we've still got about a half an hour. I think it's 4:30, isn't it? Or 5:30?
Yes.
5:25? Yeah, I'm pretty good on time. So we've got another 30 minutes, and I want to thank Sally Quarles-Duncans for tuning in. Lisa Hill is watching. Maria Miles says about 6,000. I think she's referring to the homeless count.
Right.
So let's go back to you for just a second. And we're talking to folks from Exit Zero, Paul. We have Chad from Keep Louisville Warm, Bethany, who is My Dog Eats First, Glenda with the Forgotten Louisville, and Maurice as well, and Jeff with Hip Hop Cares. Back to you, sir.
All right, so first to touch on the homeless count. It's basically put out to the public. Anybody can come. They had to go one day to a training class. The next day they had to go meet at 4 a.m. And from my knowledge, it's done from 4 a.m. to somewhere in the early hours. So only a few hours they take people out, and it's only the people they can see. So anyone sleeping in a tent's probably not going to come and answer the door at 4 a.m. for a stranger. But to go back to what we were talking about.
Only people that answer them too, right?
Correct.
So they will call out, and if they don't answer, then
only if you see
or
them.
they refuse to come out.
Right. So you can see how that might not be completely accurate in terms of account.
Hang on, let's let Chad finish his thought.
So
We're
my
all so
thoughts
talky that we just got to close our mouths and let this man speak.
It's okay. So with the homelessness, with what the city's doing downtown, it's obviously driving folks out. So you can drive down Preston Highway right now and see people walking with backpacks, shopping carts. We know how to identify a homeless person from a look. And Dixie Highway is the same way, Outer Loop. So anyone that's interested in starting their own thing, I say look in your own neighborhood, try to get some of your own neighbors together, and instead of pointing the finger at the people in your neighborhood, maybe you can feed them or feed their pets.
I think that's a really good point. Thank you, Chad, for sharing that. And it's, it's one thing to say, the old statement, you said this, not in my neighborhood. You never think bad things happen in your neighborhood, and then a car gets stolen from your street.
Sure.
Or somebody is assaulted in, a very safe neighborhood where people's kids are playing out on the yard, and, strollers are being pushed down the road, and dogs are, the major component of people's lives. And so we go back, Maurice, to you, if you would. Not everybody who is homeless, and I know this because I've met a lot of individuals with advanced educations. Not everyone is homeless, who've dropped out of grade school. Not everyone who is homeless has mental illness. Not everyone who is homeless is, is a dangerous person. There are all kinds of reasons why folks choose to be houseless. And I'd love to have your take on, on those descriptors, because you're an articulate and obviously at least book educated, if not formally educated man, and I'm going to guess both.
A little bit.
If you want to
I just
tell.
never could. I was never gonna mind. So I did more self-educated than sitting in class because I knew better.
Don't we all know at that age?
Hey, most definitely. The thing is, I've been homeless in 6 states and 13 cities. I have done it every which way except riding the rails. I've couch surfed. I've slept in my van. I've joined programs because it was cold and it was rainy and I was tired of being outside. I tried to join a carnival. I tried all kind of things because once you throw yourself away, you still have to do something. And the thing that Jeff was talking about the reality of being around people and then you're in isolation, it's the same thing but in reverse when you become homeless. That you once had an identity in which you were whoever in that, right. And then you become this thing that's known as homeless. And there is nothing about that that's positive. And so the thing is, you meet people in the street, and I will tell you this without a shadow of a doubt. One of the things that's very attractive, as much as that may seem strange to people, but one of the things that's attractive about being at the bottom of the barrel is that you no longer have to wear facades. You don't have to pretend. Whoever likes to get drunk all day, they can get drunk all day. Whoever wants to just walk around and talk to themselves can talk to themselves. And the thing is, once you reach a certain point where you're no longer being validated and reinforced in maintaining social norms, you don't have to. Once I don't have to do the things I used to do, it can be very attractive to just not try. And so when you don't try, you don't get anywhere. That's just life. I don't care who you are, what you're going through. If you don't try to make efforts in your own benefit, then you're going to end up at the bottom. And in my case, I was completely comfortable with that. The problem was people like them. Here they are coming to my little old mess pot, trying to tell me
11, 12 o'clock at night.
What a way to put it.
Trying to tell me that they want me to get off the mess pot. And I'm like, well, hey, I appreciate it, homie, but you can go back where you came from because I'm just in my own mess pot. Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, the thing is that that's not how you should be. And the thing is, whatever your education or economic or whatever experiences, whatever it is in you that takes whatever you used to be and makes you see yourself as less than, you then have to reinforce that.
Yes.
And so then that's where the people, places, and things that come with homelessness that don't leave you. And so then that's the point about everybody's got humpbacks because we're packing 80 pounds of everything everywhere you go. Yeah. And so you can only go to places where you can set that down and it be safe. And so no matter who you used to be, the nature of being at the bottom of the barrel requires you to adjust, and you have no choice. And so we all have skills, we all have a past, we all can have a future, but in the point where you are at the bottom, you have no choice but to conform to the necessities of life every day.
Well, and you just mentioned the 80 pounds of stuff that people say you carry on your backs. There are a lot of people who carry 80 pounds of stuff on their backs who have homes. So it just depends on the figurative or the literal 80 pounds of stuff. And thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate it very much. Bethany, talk to me just a little bit, and I'll give you the microphone here. Talk to me just a little bit about the interaction that you have with this amazing group and how people who might be interested in assisting you can jump on board, because obviously you accept dog food and cat food and collars and leashes and maybe beds or litter. And you just said litter if we have it. So litter, I think, must be one of the things you'd really like to have.
Litter is actually highly valued for this community, because a lot of them take care of community cats, so they'll bring in strays. It's a very loving community in terms of taking care of each other and taking care of strays. We see that all the time here. And litter is also very highly valued in our homeless communities. We have a lot of homeless that ask us for litter. And so what I want everyone to know is that we take all sorts of donations here. And if we can't use them, then we pass them along to, like if we have too many blankets, we don't, most of the people we serve here in Portland do have some type of housing, so there's not a big, huge need for blankets. So we'll call everybody and say, hey, come get blankets. all kinds of different stuff. We
Sharing
get
resources.
Yes, we get lots of one very highly valued item in the homeless arena is blue jeans. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, blue jeans, shoes,
Men's
T-shirts,
jeans.
stuff like that. We don't do a lot of people resources here. This is mainly pet resources, so we will give those out to anyone that needs them. And I think it is, to me, it is a sad fact that we probably do get more attention because we are a pet related nonprofit, but the pets can't be taken care of if they don't have their people.
That's right.
So we need to make sure that we're all concentrating on helping each other take care of these folks that are homeless and underserved, so that these companion animals can continue to have someone to care for them. Otherwise, they're going to be out on the street, they're going to be in a shelter and be euthanized. So we want to make sure that we keep them together, and we can only do that if we all work together to make sure that both people and their pets are cared for. So it's important that you get out and you volunteer. Look us all up. We all have Facebook pages. Mm-hmm. We're all very active on social media. Hip Hop Cares, the Forgotten Louisville, Fed with Faith, My Dog Eats First, Keep Louisville Warm, Exit Zero. We're all on Facebook, and volunteer, get involved.
Well, you totally stole my thunder, Bethany. She's ready to take over. Take it from.
Sorry.
It'll be take it from Bethany. Next thing I know. No, thank you for that. That was a great summary. But what I'd like to do is have each one of you tell us: is there a brick and mortar? You've got a truck. Is there some place people can bring things to drop off? Is there some place that people can come and sign their name on the dotted line to be volunteers? How does it work for all of you? Because we know we can come to Portland, 2509 Portland Avenue, bring dog food, to Bethany and other things, but we don't necessarily know how we get it to you. So, let's start with Mr. Exit Zero over here, Paul Stensrud.
Well, our situation is we just lost our warehouse in January, so we're still kind of filtering out of that. This is where we've been able to bless many in other ministries with stuff that we have excess of. But right now, the best is through the Facebook page to reach us. We will post volunteer assignments through that. We have multiple locations. That's the only bad thing with us is we don't have one central hub. So yes, we do need volunteers for sorting and all. Donations, we have to be item specific because we don't have the capacity of warehouse now.
Right.
So I have to be careful of that. But also we're in 7 different states from here to October as well, working with the homeless. So our inventory kind of rolls out quick.
Yes.
Nobody here is done short. I mean, we give out everything here locally, just like what we do any other state that we go into.
Is this a full-time volunteering position for you?
It has been for 10 years now. I've walked away from a full-time job in order to volunteer. We just had to basically downsize our life. We're very faith-driven within us, and God provides every day the needs that we need for the clients that we serve. So one day we'll understand why we do what we do, when that time comes.
Chad, keeping Louisville warm, is this a full-time endeavor for you? And once again, how can we get stuff to you if we would like to contribute to the work that you're doing?
So it is full-time for me, but I also work full-time, if that makes sense.
Sure it does. And you just started a new job?
Well, I just came from work. I was
came
just
from
training
work, okay.
from another position in my work.
Excellent.
So forgive me for being late.
No, you're fine.
We have a storage unit. I work out of my home. I probably sort clothes without kidding 4 or 5 nights a week. Go through some kind of donations. So we basically have people that help me pick up stuff.
Okay.
So just contact us through Facebook. And I did just finally get to buy our domain name, so I will have a website up soon.
Very good. Glad to know that. And we're going to skip over you, Bethany, because we already know where you are. Because you talk too much. No, because you're perfect in every way, Mary Poppins. And Glenda the Good Witch is here with us today, too. And you even spelled it right, which is even better. Forgotten Louisville.
We currently don't have a brick and mortar, but we are currently looking to invest in that. We currently have 3 storage units. We use 1 for supplies. We use 2 for furniture, for our Forgotten Furniture. We also have an Amazon page for the Forgotten Louisville where we receive donations through, and we put our hot items that we need the most of.
Now that's an interesting concept, and I've seen this being done in other organizations as well. What do we do? Sign on to Amazon and go to the Forgotten Louisville?
Yes. In fact, what we'll do on our Facebook page, the Forgotten Louisville and the Forgotten Louisville Volunteer, I'll put the Amazon link on there this evening. So you can just go in there and shop, and it'll be delivered directly to Tiny's house. So now instead of shopping at Walmart, we go to Tiny's house to shop for our needs.
Tiny is a person, by the way. Let's say that first.
She is tiny.
Tiny is tiny. She's a little tiny sweet thing, and she's out of town this week, so thank God Glenda was able to.
A conference.
And you're taking care of her dog?
Yeah.
I can't believe you.
It's a blessed family. But we take furniture in. We're going to start doing it twice a month instead of every weekend, because Maurice will attest that we are in a U-Haul truck every single weekend, because there's always someone moving into housing. So we get all of our names through Salvation Army, St. John's Men's Center, all the other groups that are represented. We do everything we can to make sure when somebody goes into a home that they have what they need. A particular thing that I'm very interested in is veterans, and
Absolutely.
My very first veteran that we moved into housing is still in housing. He's currently employed, doing very well.
Fantastic.
We moved an 84-year-old Korean War veteran into housing, and he had nothing, and that was probably one of the saddest days. I knew at that moment, no matter what happened with my life, I would continue this work for a long period of time.
That's amazing. And Maurice, I'm going to skip over the top of you because Glenda stole all your thunder. And Jeff is from Hip Hop Cares. Best way for us to be able to contribute to you, bring things to you, or where should we do? Where should we take them? Where should we bring those items that we'd like to contribute to the work that you're doing?
Well, I don't have a specific drop-off location. It really just depends on what you're wanting to get to us. As Paul had touched on, we're pretty item specific, meaning most needed items. What we're out of and gets asked for the most. We don't accept any type of money. I left all of that out of the equation when I started, and so because I wasn't accepting money, people always asked, how can I help? So we had started an Amazon page back when
I
we
stole my ideal from Jeff. Sorry.
No. I mean, it works.
Yes.
Really well. Like, and
imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yes.
That's
Glenda.
exactly
I
correct.
absolutely love it. I mean, that we have to work together.
Yes,
There's
you
things that Paul will do or y'all will do. I'm like, why didn't I think of that?
Everyone's got a different niche,
Yes.
and that's the important thing, is understanding what each organization's niche is. So that way, when that person comes through, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You can't build the center till you get the corners done, So it's a process.
Yes. But to direct, if people are interested, it's Hip Hop Cares 502 on Facebook, or just search Hip Hop Cares. Google Hip Hop Cares. I'm sure you'll find something there that'll lead you where you need to go. We do weekly event pages for the community outreach down on Broadway. So if anybody wants to get involved, my philosophy is, what are you comfortable with? What do you want to do? If you want to pass out food, then you can pass out food. There's no type of training. I just feel like if you have it on your heart, then come down.
Yes.
I can't tell you what you're going to get out of it, because everybody's going to pull something different. But the biggest thing with Hip Hop Cares, aside from the obvious, which is helping people restore faith and with most needed items, but bringing the community together.
Yes.
Because it's so important, and not for selfish reasons, because I want people in the community to be aware of what we face so they can help Paul, or they can help Fed with Faith or Chad or any of the other. There's many outreach groups out here that put in a lot of work and don't get as much attention or recognition, but and they probably design it that way. Like, I'm going to put him on blast, but a gentleman named Daryl Glass,
Hey,
one
Daryl.
of the most active and humbling people that I've ever met in my life. Like, he's been a mentor to me since I started, and I met him in a camp. And he walked up and he said, "Oh, you're Jeff." I had no idea who he was, but through talking to people, because he's so active, he's out almost every day, but he stays away from the attention. But it's important that we as a community rally around each other, and what it all boils down to is respect and love.
Yep.
That's my main keys all day, every day, is just if we can respect each other, we can some way figure out how to love each other and cut out all the extra
I
stuff.
could not agree more, and that was a cogent summary. And I want to just thank Michael Johnson and Carrie Meyer. Rebecca Eves, our friend
Rebecca.
from the Aero Fund, is watching. Maria Miles says, thanks all for setting this up, and much love to all of the rest of you for all you do. So I'm going to let Bethany talk for just a minute, but the first thing I want to say is, you and I talked about doing this a while back, and we were going to get Tiny involved, and then Tiny went out of town, and then Bethany's mother broke her arm and had to have surgery, and she's been going absolutely crazy trying to handle her business and her family and her My Dog Eats First and all the things that she does. And so last night, I just got this wild hair to go on Facebook and just put in homeless outreach, Louisville. And I found all of you guys. And I reached out to you at 10 and 11 o'clock last night because, you know, I always do things like go big or go home. So instead of having one guest, why not have 6 guests, you know, especially when you only have 5 microphones? Or 7 of us all together? I can't even believe that. But anyway, it turned out to be such a blessing because, you know, the people who are watching and the people who are hearing about what is happening, I have subjects that are lighthearted and subjects that are serious. And I love getting into an in-depth conversation with quality individuals who have a tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise in their area and attacking a problem that isn't just, it's just not really well observed, and it's certainly not well represented in terms of what you all do. We have a lot of publicity about the homeless camp being raised, and then it kind of falls off. It's like that's why the kids are doing the March for Your Lives and the walkouts over and over and over again, keeping it above consciousness. And I'd like to encourage everybody who's watching and listening today, share this so that other people will get the message about what's going on in the homeless community and in the homeless outreach agencies that serve the community of folks who are homeless, and the people whose animals are getting a little bit of extra support from My Dog Eats First. And Bethany, we don't have to continue to share this mic. I can just put it on you, and I'll just lean over like this
Sure.
and talk to you. But just talk to me just a little bit about what your hope is for My Dog Eats First and the scope that you would like to see My Dog Eats First achieve, and how that is going to be able to benefit all these other folks who we're sitting here talking to.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, what I'd like is for My Dog Eats First to never have to help another homeless person with their animal again, because homelessness will then be a non-issue. But, you know, I think that we will always have, there will always be a need for our organizations in the community, and while there is that need, then my hope is that we can all still, you know, continue to work together, and that we can raise awareness about these issues so that people start to understand and are more compassionate towards people that find themselves in these situations in their life. And like I said before, everyone deserves someone to help them look forward to tomorrow, whether that is a companion animal or an organization like the Forgotten, Keep Louisville Warm, Exit Zero, Hip Hop Cares. All of these organizations are working together collectively to make sure that people are getting taken care of, and even if they don't want to be taken care of, just giving them a little bit of love and letting them know that there is hope for them and that there is people out there that care about them and don't expect anything in return, because none of us do. We all do this just because we love people and I love animals. So in terms of what we're going to do is we're going to keep working in the homeless communities and the underserved communities and just keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully one day maybe we'll be able to have our own facility and share it with all the folks that are sitting at this table. I would love to give everyone a hub to have storage space and space to come together and just use it for whatever they might need it for. So I don't think that's a far-fetched idea. We've talked about it before.
Been there before,
Yeah.
haven't we?
All right, I'm taking the microphone back. No. Your thoughts. Where is Keep Louisville Warm going? Chad.
So we just plan to continue to grow. We invite anybody that wants to serve with us down. We also are trying to work with the city. That's all of us here. And we currently have 4 more closures of sites where homeless people are sleeping, And maybe I shouldn't be speaking on this, but I'm going to anyways. You know, each week we get an email, and it's another 21-day notice. With the question we have is, where are these people supposed to go that are in our downtown? And there's no answer for that. So I would like to do anything that I can, but I would like to see our higher powers, our mayor, you know, become the compassionate city that they say we are, and have an answer before we create the issue.
And you're perfectly fine to say that, because it's a legitimate concern, and it's something that a lot of people who both are living in the homeless camps and those who are serving those homeless camps are very, very concerned about. And I know that there aren't always clear answers to the problems, but the conversation has to be had, and the channels have to be kept open. So I appreciate you sharing that very much.
You're welcome.
The future of Exit Zero.
Oh boy. You know, we just never know what God's got in store. You know, right now, 10 years ago, our mission was to be out here locally working, which it still is today. But what we're also seeing is the opportunity to go into other neighborhoods, other cities, other states, in order to educate and train other folks to do what we do here locally, to absorb what's working in one city and bring it back, and kind of that's what's making things successful with getting people off the streets. So right now within us, we're still doing what we do. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing, but God does. He continues to lead the path, brings us the right connections when we need it. And like I said, this year is going to be a busy year for us because of our other outreaches out of state. But once again, it's there isn't other programs like this in other cities, I will tell you that. We've been to 29 cities in 9 different states.
Wow.
And there's no outreach groups like this, you know, and this has to be done in each city because it does reduce the numbers. Talking to law enforcement earlier this week in Jeffersonville, just saying, hey, 6 years ago, where was the homeless versus now? And it was very humbling to know that they're more respectful. There's less number, you know, so it goes to show that these type of outreaches, it does work. But we need our own entity because it's not the shelter system. This is street outreach, and street outreach and sheltering are 2 totally different avenues.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Future of the Forgotten Louisville, Miss Glenda.
I would like to think that we'll have our own building before long. We're going to start a lot of grant writing, which I'm in the middle of, and that's kind of where we see our future. I think with the city, I've had personal help from Lieutenant Felty and his crew, who have been instrumental in telling me where new people are, where their suggestion may be. They've been really good at trying to move us forward out of a negative space with these places closing. And also we need the community. We need places, we need buildings, we need donations of housing, we need more resources for people with lower incomes to get in off of the street. And hopefully we'll continue to touch the people of Louisville. We have spread our outreach out to as far as Bullitt County, as far as Dixie Highway, and as far as the Fern Creek area. So we're spreading pretty thin. Hopefully we'll have another outreach team that'll be able to pick up some of that slack. We're just trying to make the world a better place, one step at a time.
Jeff, Hip Hop Cares, what's it coming to?
Well, based off of what I thought it would be when I started to where I'm at now, my most honest answer that I can give you is I have no idea. Yeah. But I can say this: I will continue to keep going, as we all will, and whatever comes up is where I'm going to go. I mean, an interesting dynamic to what we do is it's ever changing. What we see this month will more than likely won't be what we'll see next month. So everything's changing and evolving, and the only thing I can say is the future of Hip Hop Cares is, God willing, we continue to grow and reach more areas and keep restoring faith and let people know that, as you touched on, you're not defined by your current position. Yeah. it just takes a little bit of hope and some hard work. So that's where we're going, is as far as we can.
I love that. Maurice, I'm going to let you wrap up for us, because you've done such an eloquent job of speaking for us throughout this entire interview, and I appreciate that very much. Talk to me about what you would like to see as the future of the agencies, such as these wonderful outreach programs that help folks who are houseless, and I like that so much, and how we can help more men and women like you who had been living on the street for a long period of time get into the housing that you have talked about being so grateful for.
Always a tough one, Tara. Okay.
Tara.
If you called me that again, man, you're in big trouble now. No, it's okay.
Which one is it again?
It's okay. It's Tara.
Tara. Okay.
Just remember Tara Boom Da. Is that song?
Yeah, I'll try that out.
Try to remember that. Hey, how you doing?
The single biggest thing that made a difference in my case of even wanting to get off the bottom was the chance that the Grand Dame here gave me one day to help be useful. The storage units they had, they needed help, and she was like, well, and I'm like, yes, because the thing is, the concept that everybody has about people at the bottom is you're not good for anything.
Yes.
And so they never give you the chance to be good for anything. And so the assumption is that it is not worth the effort to give someone a chance to feel good about giving back. I didn't have any money, but I had the ability to sweat and to pick stuff up. I would gladly move furniture and help organize something if someone would give me the opportunity. And so what I'm saying is that since the biggest problem with everybody at the bottom is the spirit of less than, that I think so much less of myself, I will not waste effort trying to do better, is that when somebody shows you that they think you're worth giving a shot to do anything, it ignites something in you that you've already given up on. And so from that one day where I got the chance to do a little this and that, and I came back, I felt so much better about myself than I had in years, because all of those demons in my head that I let beat me down can't compete to the fact that the reason I'm so sore is because I have actually been useful. And so when you start to feel useful in any way, it then starts to remind you that you weren't always where you are. And so my thing is to the outreach community, remember that all the folks you hand blankets to and food to and you whatever to, those people once upon a time used to keep this country safe. Those people used to have businesses and they used to do a bunch of things. They have value and would love on occasion to be of use, because it doesn't feel good to always get. But when no one gives you the chance to give back at all, that I'm certain that plenty of the folks who get dog food don't have a problem helping separate the dog food in.
Right.
Because
Right.
part of the thing when you're not paying, you still feel less than. And so when someone gives you a chance to do anything to give something back, you feel better. So I would like to see more people in the outreach community actually have the courage to believe that the people they're investing in are worth the investment, and challenge them to say, hey, look, pull some of the weight sometime. Remind us that when we put into you, you're worth it, because you understand there is no free lunch. These folks, nobody out here is a millionaire giving away their inheritances. And if people
You're
can...
not?
What
I was hoping to
It's
get
buried
into
in my
the
backyard.
And when people invested in me, it always made me feel strange that I just didn't know how to give back.
Right.
And so that's what I wish that more people would actually ask somebody, hey, is there anything that you might like to want to do that we can do? Because nobody ever asks you, what are you good for when you're on the street? Nobody.
Now, I want to piggyback on, I know you're real short, but
No,
I want to
fine. No, I'm
piggyback on
pretty
this
tall,
because
actually. She's really short.
what he brings up is very valid. You know,
Yes.
they want to give back. But here's the other side, on the outreach side. We need folks like him, because when he's out on the streets with us, he's able to help us educate and understand even further the homeless population, but also he ran the streets. You know, you get bit by a rattlesnake, what do you need? You need that venom from that rattlesnake. You need someone in that identical position to help you. And I love the challenge, because we took a guy to New Orleans for 5 days. a homeless man from Jeffersonville, walked the streets of New Orleans with 35 other kids, you know, educated. They loved the man to death, but like you said, gave him dignity, gave him more respect. And you know what? Now he's working on his health, working on his housing, because it gave him the hope instead of returning back to my garage that I live in. You know, hey, you made me feel good, and guess what? I just got bit by something. When are we going again? You know, and that's the type of attitude that we need out here, because that is exactly what keeps us going in this type of ministry, is those success stories and hearing exactly what he shared.
Go ahead. I concur.
One thing
that was the shortest sentence out of Bethany Buster's mouth ever in the history of the world.
Whoever we move into housing, that person helps us with the next person.
Yep.
Right.
And there's a lot of people in and out of our U-Haul truck. Them feel so much better, and it gives them that push. Okay, I can do that. I can get into housing like this guy. Okay, I can tell somebody else.
It's an investment, just like you
very
said.
much an investment.
So why invest in somebody but only say, here are the keys, have a good day? That's not the way we live. You know, you have to continue, because when they get in that housing is when they need you the most. You know, because of the mentoring as well as just the basic services and life skill building.
I'm going to wrap up a few minutes early because Bethany has work to do, because this is the night that folks are coming in to get their dog and cat food and their supplies. And the one challenge I would throw out here, and that is, Bethany, you've been fortunate to have Gil Holland, who is a wonderful philanthropist in town, give you a great deal on a building down here in Portland. And I'm just going to challenge folks who are watching who have the capability of doing this to think about the nonprofits that are working in your life and in your city on behalf of the homeless, on behalf of animals, on behalf of everything you can imagine. There are 600 plus nonprofits in this town, and they all have great causes. This one particularly, because of my love for animals and because of my love for those who are operating on a less fortunate level than I am, really, really has touched my heart. And I would like to challenge those of you who have the capability of giving in whatever way you can, whether it's by donating your time or by bringing bags of dog food down to My Dog Eats First, or by finding out on their Facebook pages where Exit Zero or Keep Louisville Warm or Hip Hop Cares or the Forgotten Louisville are setting up where you can bring items that they would need to be able to distribute. So I guess I would call them the distribution events that you would have. Take some time to cook with Fed with Faith. Go down there on Sunday to Beargrass Christian Church and help prepare 250 hot meals and a bunch of sack lunches, and then go out and distribute them. And, you know, Heidi Joy Stenson is a very good friend of mine who is a Louisville musician, and she started an organization called the Louisville Musicians Service Coalition. Mm-hmm. And she and Chad Graham were talking one day, and they said, you know, they walked past and said, somebody ought to do something about that. And then realized we are the somebody. Mm-hmm. So the concept of being able to take ownership of a problem is a very, very difficult concept in our world today. But with the notices going up, with 21-day notifications that Chad was referring to, and the constant fear that Maurice was talking about of living on your own, whether it's in a homeless encampment or individually underneath an overpass, which Jeff might serve, there's just so much at stake. So that's my challenge today on Take It From Tara. It's been a somber Wagon Wednesday, but you know, there is a lot of fun to be had on this National Pet Day, and I say go home, kiss your dogs and cats and lizards and gerbils and whatever else you have. If you've got a horse, you know, Rebecca Eves, if you've got 9 animals, just go ahead and give them all hugs and kisses for us. And thank you all so much. I appreciate you guys. Paul from Exit Zero, and Chad from Keep Louisville Warm, and of course the lovely and talented Bethany Buster from My Dog Eats First, and Glenda, who is Forgotten Louisville, Maurice, who has been helping Forgotten Louisville and is an inspiration to me for the accomplishments that you've made. Thank you for sharing with us. And Jeff from Hip Hop Cares, appreciate you so much. And what's going to happen right now, Bethany, here at My Dog Eats First?
So this is our Portland. We call it we call it Waggle Wednesday. So it's our
copycat
Yours is wagon.
I know.
So it's our pet food bank night, and we will distribute over 1,000 pounds of pet food tonight, and we will serve usually about 120 people.
Wow.
So they'll come through the door. So we open to the public at 7. It's very organized and efficient. We have volunteers that are getting ready to come in about 15 minutes. We get all set up, and we'll be ready to rock and roll.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much, and have a good night. And by the way, there's going to be a conversation on Insider Louisville, their website, streaming live starting now, to talk about K through 12 education. And I think that all of us who are live casting and podcasting need to support each other. So I would suggest you might want to switch over to Insider Louisville's page and find out what an extensive group of speakers, just like we had here tonight, are going to do to help with the creative challenges of K through 12 education. Thanks so much. Good night. I'm going to turn off the camera, you guys. This is kind of informal. You can take your microphones off. And thank you again. I appreciate you.